Hi, this is Lori Smith, and I'm a member of the St. Clair Shores Yardeners since 2011. I'm going to talk to you today about the native plants for butterflies and pollinators that I talked about on April 12th, 2021 during our monthly meeting that we have speakers at. So the picture you see on the left is part of my garden from my patio table. And then that's a picture of me dreaming about butterflies on the right. I am also a Master Gardener Trainee. I took the MSU Master Gardener Training the fall of 2019. And because of COVID, I'm still considered a trainee because we were limited with volunteer hours because of the pandemic. I've been doing native gardening and pesticide free in my yard for 10 years. I've been raising monarch butterflies and growing plant weed for them for about 9 years. I've been tagging monarch butterflies for about 5 or 6 years, going down to Mexico. They found one of my monarch butterflies in February of 2016 up in the mountains of Mexico. And my garden has been featured on the St. Clair Shores Yardeners garden tour in 2011. And that's when I joined the group after I showed my garden. And then 2019, we had our 25th anniversary of the Yardeners group. So they had a couple of the members show their yards in 2019. Okay, this is the overview for the meeting. Why native plants? So I'm going to talk to you about why it's important to plant native plants. Right plant, right place. So that's going to talk about sunlight and soil and things like that. Then I have a slide talking about soil testing, talking about killing weeds and preparing your garden areas. I'll show you some examples of my own yard of how we planned ahead and how it now looks today. Then I will talk about, I'll have slides of the native plants for Michigan, including our plant sale list. So those will be the first few slides. And then talk about also some other of my favorite native plants. And then I'll have a slide on native milkweeds. And then the last slide is about resources and contact information. Okay, oops. Okay, so why native plants? You probably have seen, if you've been to any talks about native plants or about growing stuff that has deep root systems, you'd see this image here. And the image over here to the right is an example of turf grass. So you can see this little green square here. That is turf grass. Their root system is very, it's a runner root system, but it's a very shallow root system. So if you live near the lake or near a river, near a stream, something like that, if you grow these natives, it'll help prevent your flooding in your yard. So you can see, like, this is the lead plant. This is a grass called the Indian grass. This is the compass plant. You can see they're probably one of the longer root systems here. Pale purple coneflower, blue stem, that is also a grass. This is boneset, which is a really great native plant for bees and pollinators. White wild indigo. And this is some kind of resin weed. But you can see a lot of the natives have deep root systems. So because they're native and because they have the deep root systems, you don't have to water them as often. They will soak up the water that's in your ground. They'll go below ground level, water level. So the reason for native plants is to help encourage pollinators and other beneficial insects by planting native plants. We need desperately for them to survive to pollinate our crops. Otherwise, our crops are going to die. A lot of farmers who was using chemicals, dangerous chemicals on their crops have chosen to switch and go back to planting native plants around their crops, which is helping the pollinators. And it also helps the environment and humans, because some of the chemicals they were using on the corn and the soy and stuff are toxic to us. So again, I said native plants have deep root systems. They will help soak up the moisture if you have flooding issues. And I'm a prime example. When we first moved in our house in St. Clair Shores, our backyard used to flood all the time. Then they built, we're on a court, so they built some houses that were higher than us. And then our flooding was worse because all the rainwater was running down into our yard. We also, you'll see some pictures of us taking down a pool. In the 4x4s, when we took those out, you could hear the water sloshing. So our water level is about 18 inches to 2 feet down. So our water table is very high. We live a block from Lake St. Clair, so we had a lot of flooding issues in our backyard, and having the native plants have resolved that. Think about doing a rain garden to divert water away from your house foundation. So people that are having problems with water seeping into their basement, you can take your downspout and bring it out into your yard and have the downspout put the water in by using a French drain. You can bring that into the rest of your yard and also have a rain garden. So a lot of these natives like wet feet, meaning they like the wet soil, so they'll soak up that water for you. It also helps clean the stormwater before it goes into Lake St. Clair or any lake or river or stream that you live near. Do not use pesticides in your native or rain gardens. Introduce beneficial insects into your garden instead. Ladybugs, if you're not concerned about praying mantis going after butterflies, then praying mantis. A lot of the praying mantis we have are not native to our area either. They were brought in from overseas, and they've actually chased our native species down south farther. So there are plenty of beneficial insects to introduce to your garden. Right plant, right place. So garden area conditions. What type of areas do you have? That's one of the questions that you should be asking yourself. The other question is, do you have full sun, full shade, or partial shade? So full sun means that you need at least 6 hours per day. But some plants, such as vegetables, really need 8 to 10 hours a day, like your tomatoes, your corn, things like that, lettuce. Some of your cooler weather plants like lettuce probably doesn't need as much sun or heat during the day. Partial sun or partial shade means that the plant needs 3 to 6 hours of direct sun per day. And sometimes you'll see when you Google a plant, you'll see sometimes that term is used interchangeably. So they'll say partial sun, partial shade. It's pretty much the same thing. Don't be afraid to move plants. I move them all the time. If they get crowded, or I like to give away plants when I get too many of some kind in an area and I want to thin it out a little bit. Or they're getting too much sun or shade. I had a reblooming lilac bush that I got during one of our garden tours. We have Soliers usually is a vendor at our garden tour. So I bought this and put it in my shade garden area, and it never really grew much. And then when we took the pool down and we moved it, I had it in full sun. It doubled in size the first year I planted it. And, it was probably maybe a foot when I first planted it there. And now it's probably about 4.5, 5 feet, and it's big around now. It likes where it's at. So just try to make your plants happy. If they're not happy in one place, move them around. Make sure when you do move them that you dig up as much of the root system as you can. And water the plant well until it's established. Okay, soil testing. So I did do the soil testing when I was in the Master Gardener class, and I did it through MSU. You can buy it through, a garden center, one of the big box stores if you want to. The one that the MSU does cost a little bit more than the store-bought ones, but it's well worth it because it tells you, your levels of potassium, phosphorus, calcium, magnesium, sulfur. It tells you the level of organic materials in your soil, and what you might need to amend the soil pH and stuff. So one of the couple of the questions at the top, or one of the questions at the top, what kind of things are you going to plant? Are you going to plant flowers, herbs, vegetables? They all need different pH balances. They all, some of them need lime or fertilizer to amend the soil. The best time to do a soil test is probably mid to late summer, so that you get the results back before fall, before the frost, because that's the best time to put the organic material or the chemicals into your yard, the safe chemicals into your yard to bring up the nutrients. I prefer the more natural way. I put either compost, or when all my neighbors' leaves fall, I rake them up. My front yard's full of his leaves, so I rake them up and I move them to the back garden, and I throw them in my fenced-in vegetable garden. So that breaks down over the winter and gives me the nutrients I need for my vegetable bed. So that's a bit it on that. Okay, so safe ways to kill weeds. I don't use any weed killer, especially the little popular one, because it's dangerous. It's not good for you to breathe in. It's not good for the pollinators. It's killing them off. So I don't use any toxic chemicals in my garden. So if you want butterflies and pollinators in your garden, bees, flies, whatever, you want to make sure you don't use toxic chemicals, because that will kill them. So a lot of people will use vinegar to kill weeds in your cracks of your sidewalk and your driveway. My husband, when he mows, he uses the weed whacker for the cracks in the sidewalk and the driveway. Sometimes I get down and I weed them to get the root out all the way, so I have to keep whacking them all the time. So you want to make sure, if you got weeds that have seeds like dandelions or something like that, if you leave the dandelion flowers for the bees in the spring, make sure you get them before they get all fluffy and start blowing away, or otherwise you're going to have more. So you want to also, get them before they seed. You want to make sure you get the complete root. Grass has runner roots, like I said, and the roots aren't very deep. So if you want to get rid of a grassy area to start a new garden bed, whether it's a vegetable garden, flower bed, or whatever, best time to do that is fall. Smother the weeds or grass area with cardboard or newspaper. And you don't want to use color newspaper like, glossy magazine covers and stuff like that. You want to use the old black and white newspaper. This is what I clean up or leave in the fall. So in the fall, I rake leaves and I throw them into my garden beds. And why? Like I said before, it breaks down over the winter. It adds nutrients to your soil. It's also a good place for our species of moss, caterpillars for moss, and other pollinators. The bumblebee, which I just found out recently, by disturbing the female, the queen, she was putting her little nest in the ground cover. I pulled up a weed and she was flying around my head going crazy, and never knew they were ground bees. I knew there were some ground bees, I just didn't know it was bumblebees. So if you can leave leaf matter or twigs or something on the ground in the fall, that's the best. even birds like to get stuff out of, the weeds and stuff in the wintertime. So if you can leave a little bit of mess in your garden, you don't have to have a proper, house beautiful type garden. So I also will leave the seed heads on some of my plants for the birds, especially like the sunflowers, the tick seed, um, I got a bunch of different yellow flowers, sunflower family type, coneflower, those type of things. I leave the seeds on for the yellow finches. I mean, in the fall, I have got to be 20 or 30 yellow finches just eating my seeds. It's cool to watch the little yellows flying around from yellow flower to yellow flower. You will get some reseeding of plants, but if you don't mind, please help out the bird population. If plants do reseed, then in the spring, you can pull out the ones you don't want. So thin them out. Just make sure as they're sprouting up, you get the whole root system if you don't want them. Also in the fall, I do not cut all my plants down to the ground. I leave my stocky plants like my sunflowers, things that have a hard stem. They're either hollow or they have that foamy material inside of it because there are pollinators, bees and things like that. And that will burrow in there and they'll stay in those stalks. So I leave them 2 to 3 feet high so they have plenty of room to get down there. It's really important for the pollinators. They'll nest and protect them from the cold winters in Michigan. Another slide about planting and planting in the fall and the spring. So fall is a great time to plant your spring bulbs, to plant your milkweed seeds. If you plant them in the fall, you don't have to do as much work in the spring. If you wait until spring, then you have to cold stratify them, either put them in the fridge or the freezer for a couple days to break down the seeds. If you just plant them in the fall, the cold winter in Michigan will take care of cold stratification for those milk seeds and you'll start getting sprouts the next spring. And they fly around like dandelions, so they don't have to go very deep under the dirt level. Native plants is a good time to start some native plants. You want to do it probably September, so it doesn't get too cold for the native plants. They have to have a little bit of time to get some root system going. Divide plants. So we have a plant exchange usually the third Saturday in September every year in the parking lot behind the St. Clair Shores Library at 11 and Jefferson. I think it's from 9 to 3. We'll see it on the last slide. And people just bring their plants. They dig up their plants that they want to get rid of, and they either trade them or they just say, take them for free. I've gotten a lot of plants that way. So I also, if I'm going to move something that, I watched all summer long and I say, maybe it's not doing too good here, I'm going to move it. So I'll transplant that in the fall too. But I like also to plant the spring bulbs like tulips and things like that come up in the spring. So you have other plants that will bloom in the spring, in summer, I mean. So you have summer bulbs that are like your lilies and things like that. Those you want to plant early spring so that they will come up for the summer, for that summer. Also new native plants. So we've used to get our native plants. We used to have our native plant sale in May, but the plants weren't as big as we wanted them and they were pretty tiny. So we started getting them a little later in the year. So we order them at the end of May. The orders are due in May 20th. And our native plant sale is June 12th, Saturday, June 12th. It's usually the second Saturday in June. Also, fall is a great time for planning a garden makeover for the next year. If you're getting rid of grass, like I said, then cover early fall with cardboard, newspaper, last resort plastic, due to environmental concerns. If you do use plastic, make sure you take it up and throw it away properly in your garbage. Don't put it in the recycle. It doesn't break down. A lot of the plastic material is made with petroleum products, so you want to be careful. Like I said, use the cardboard in your garden. It will provide compostable material, kills pesky weeds, grass. It also helps you with a bumper crop of earthworms. I love that. Okay, so here I'm going to show you quite a few pictures of my yard. So when we first moved in November of 1999. And like I said, we had flooding issues when we came in. This whole area that had the has a little birdhouse, that's my native area. And then this is the pool deck. And this was all sand back here. They had 2 playscapes back here. It was all sand. I had I forget. I had a lot of like horseweed or whatever it's called. That's really bad and really invasive. So we got rid of that. We brought in a little bit more dirt, brought our soil level up. And then I just had, this was my first native area, and I started planting that in like 2011. And when I had my and then we put a patio in 2009. So we put a 10 by 10 foot patio. We've increased the size a little bit. And then we had this garden here, and then we had the lattice, and I would put up some plastic like lattice or something, or like kind of like chicken wire, but the little rabbits would chew through and get my beans every year. I do have some milkweed here. This is a woodland sunflower, and it would get as tall as, it gets about 10 feet tall. I still have it today in the same area. It's a little bit bigger than this. But you can see with the above ground pool, we had just a narrow path. And this was one of those winters where it just snowed and stayed cold, and we had feet, I don't know, 3-4 feet of snow at that point. This is our area, and we did have a privacy fence around the whole house, around the whole yard, and we took that down because we got along real well with our neighbors. And I do have 3 rain barrels on my property. I usually store them in the garden upside down. This was my original garden again, in the little bench we had, the pool deck. So we had already replaced the liner once in our pool, and we were about having to do it again, and the walls were starting to deteriorate. So we kept the pool till summer of 2013 because my daughter was graduating, and we wanted to have a pool party for her graduation. But I was already thinking what I was going to do with that big area I was going to get. So planning and prepping for the new garden area. This was spring 2014. I think this was actually like, this picture with the snow on the left was from like our April Fool's Day or Easter that year. You know how we always get that one last snowfall. And this is as we were starting, and we'd already taken the walls down. And we started taking a post down. You can see the deck at the back of the house here. And then we started, here's our narrow path here, which we're going to make a 10-foot wide patio. So I ended up with a 36-foot wide from the garage to my property line and back from the house to the back garden path area, 24 feet. So the new patio is going to be 10 feet wide by 24. And you can see we're starting to make progress here. This was, I think it was around beginning of June that we put this down. So this is some fabric, landscaping fabric. And then that's the middle garden area that I'm going to put my natives in. This is the patio area that were next to the garage. And over here with the post is going to be my vegetable garden. And we did leave a couple of the 4x4s in. So my vegetable garden's kind of a weird shape because of the way the pool deck went. But we left the 4x4, so we had posts for, and my husband took them and cut them down because they were, very high. So this is like the first summer, what we had. And you can see here's that brick path and more space that we have here for the patio. So the first year, I think this plant here might have been that boomerang lilac I moved from the back over to here. This is a Japanese maple that I bought. We moved in spring of 2015, so a year after we cleared out the pool deck. We've been wanting to move this because it was kind of crowded by our fence that we had here. It was a beautiful Japanese maple. I bought it at English Gardens when we first moved in the house. So it had been there, and I bought it in like I think maybe a 2 or 3 gallon or 5 gallon bucket at English Gardens for like $11. And so it was there for 15 years, I guess, or 14 years. And so we decided to dig it out. We started on a weekend. It was spring. It was cold. Then we got rain. So we got it dug out. My son came over and helped us. We took this piece of fence down so that we could get at it. Then we put it back up. But we burlapped it for a couple days. So I think this was on a Saturday or Sunday. And then my daughter and my husband actually moved it with a cherry picker on Thursday or Friday afternoon. Okay, and then we'd already put in that, I think it was fall of 2014, my husband finished the patio. So the patio is 10 feet wide to the from the garage to the other flower bed. So you can see that the hole's here. So this tree was probably about 12 feet tall when we moved it. And so it's in place. This is it during the summer. So it was happy and it survived. And then fall. So you can see it was very happy. My husband, talked me into moving it there because we needed some height. It also ends up giving us a lot of privacy when we're sitting at our patio table from the neighbors. Okay. So again, this was, like I said, I think this was like, this was spring of 2015. We were going to take out this sidewalk here, and then this was the garden fence. And what we did around the garden fence, because we do have rabbit issues, we took chicken wire and brought it underneath the fence out about a foot, and then brought it up in the inside all the way back against the railing about halfway up. And then my husband's got 2x4s down below the railing to keep the rabbits out also. And that works perfect. We don't have any rabbit problems coming in here. Sometimes I got squirrels eating my tomatoes, but that's beside the point. And then this is one of my rain barrels here. So I got one here. I got one back at the entrance of our fence where we took the Japanese maple off. And then I have one midway up the side of our house. And I use that for my plants. I don't use it in my vegetable garden because the water does come off the roof off of pesticides shingles. So I don't want those chemicals on my vegetables. So I do use a hose in there. And you can see my plants are taking shape here. They're starting to get big. This is that balloon, that reblooming lilac. These are probably some sunflowers and woodland flowers and stuff here. And then this is our new sidewalk to the back of our house. My husband, when he knocked out the cement there. He was digging a little bit deeper and found another sidewalk underneath it. So the old sidewalk, this sidewalk here, went all the way back to the back of the house. It was a 2-layer. Had a lot of cement to get rid of. So we hired somebody that was actually putting in a patio for our neighbor, and he brought his backhoe and we paid him $75 and he took all the stone away for us. The patio brick we got from Solier's, the other sidewalk brick we get from Home Depot. And then you can see we got kind of a color theme. We use the same stain for our side deck, for our lattice here against the garage, and then for our garden fence. So it's all the same color. And then my husband built me stools that the rain barrel sits on, and it helps. You have to have it at least 18 inches to 2 feet high so that you have some pressure for the water to drain out of the rain barrel when you turn on the spigot. Okay. It's not enough pressure to, run a hose on, but it's enough to, fill a couple jugs. I usually save iced tea jugs or something like that. Okay. And you see these arborvitaes here. This is, so this area back here was my shade garden. Well, spring of 2019, I hear some sawing going on outside. I work from home and I went out, and to my surprise, they started chopping these trees down. I freaked. Only, well, because of my shade garden. They didn't tell me that they were going to cut these trees down. They were in my property line. They were growing in my property line. I wasn't happy when they first put them in, but I adapted my garden to a shade garden. So now it's going to be full sun all morning, all afternoon. And it was spring. So the birds were starting to nest up in here, and we get a lot of birds putting nests up here. So the guys were nice enough to let me, make sure before they cut the tree down, there was no nest. And they were very careful not to let the trees fall onto my garden or onto my plants, or I have the frame of the gazebo up over here. And you can see my rain barrels here. But you can see this is spring. So I got a bunch of different stalks standing up. I leave the stalks, like I said, for the seeds, for the pollinators. And it also gives me height in the winter so that you can see some height in your garden. So you'll see a picture of that too. Okay, so that's the gazebo. The stumps were there. They did come in and chop up the stumps. This was actually not, this picture on the right-hand side is actually last summer. My neighbor decided to put some sod here. He had rocks here and like little stepping stones, and he took those out and he put sod in. And he asked me if I wanted sod, and I was gonna say, yeah, go ahead. He was gonna pick it up, and then I started weeding this area down here near my beginning of my property. And I kept looking and I'm going, he has a lawn service. I don't want them spraying chemicals that are going to seep into my garden area. So I changed my mind. I told him I changed my mind. I told him that we had some seed. We put some seed and some straw down for him. So he did that, and it's coming in really great there. And I put the landscape fabric again and put the wood chips in so that I have some barrier between his grass and my native plants. Okay. This is a big, huge lilac bush. This lilac tree I got probably one of the first summers, maybe 2000. When we first moved in the house, I, donated for Arbor Day, and I got 10 trees. And this was one of the trees that survived. We actually moved it. It was near the side patio of our yard, and it was getting too big. So we moved it there probably, I don't know, probably 2011. And this patio we put in kind of early when we put the gazebo patio in, probably 2009. The last 2 winters, we've been putting our patio furniture in the gazebo structure and just putting tarp over it. But you can see this is kind of fall here. The trees are losing its leaves. And this is how my garden looks in the winter. The cardinals love it. The black-eyed juncos love it. And this is my garden with my rain barrels. And you can see I have a lot of height and a lot of things going on in the garden. So almost like enjoying the flowers. I enjoy seeing the plants with the snow on it. Okay, right plant, right place, sun or shade. So again, this was an older picture where the arborvitaes were there. But you can see this is probably late afternoon. I'm getting sun from the back of my property is south. My my wide patio and the garage are facing east towards the lake. So this is the west side of the sun coming in past my neighbor's house to the side of me. My little path here. And you can see all my native plants are very happy and very tall. Some are 10, 12 feet tall. And then this is a goldenrod, and I used it the one year to release my monarchs, and they were happy. And this area is my bench and my violet rose. It's a Downton Abbey rose that I got from one of the native garden places. I'll mention them on the last side. I can't think of them right now. This is Edelweiss. Very pretty flower too. This is my memorial garden to my mom. Her name was Violet, so I planted this rose in her memory. Okay, this is one of my gazebos. This is my native garden here. This is before the arborvitaes, so this was an older picture, probably from 2018, maybe 17, 18. And you can see how high these sunflower type plants are here. They're very happy. And then I have a lot of different colors going on in my background, in my backyard. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the native plants on our plant sale. So we have the yellow flowers. So zigzag goldenrod. It's a low growing plant, very spindly, kind of zigzags through the landscape. Nice filler plant. It will take partial sun, partial shade to shade. I have it in my front garden bed and my side of my house that doesn't get a lot of sun because it's between the two houses. So it does really well. Very nice little flower. It behaves well. It likes sand, loam, clay, average to medium soil moisture, height 1 to 2 feet. Spread 1 to 3 feet, blooms in August, October. So like the fall migrators, bees and stuff like that love it in the summertime or the fall time. Yellow dainty flowers, thin stem, will tolerate heavy shade, clay soil, has rhizome roots. Nice filler plant, attracts bees and butterflies, deer tolerant. Golden Alexander, great host plant for the eastern black swallowtail caterpillars. If I run out of dill or parsley, I put them on this plant. They love it. So Golden Alexander doesn't spread a whole lot. Mine is just, I mean, I've had that for a couple of years in my garden. I just found a couple little starts in a couple different places in my garden, but that's okay with me. I don't have to put as many wood chips down. Full sun, partial shade. 2 to 3 feet, so it's a low growing plant too. It blooms in May, June. Yellow dainty flowers, thin stem, similar to the dill or the Queen Anne's lace flower. Same family. Attracts bees, butterflies. Like I said, host plant for the eastern black swallowtail caterpillar. Deer resistant. So if you have deer problem, that's one of your plants. Culver's root. Love, 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 love this plant. I've had this in my back garden area for, I don't know, probably since 2011, 2012. It grows 3 to 5 feet, sometimes a little taller in my backyard. White flowers, and you'll get like 5 or 6 things coming up, spikes coming up. Doesn't need to be staked. The bumblebees, as you can see in this picture, love it. Blooms July and September, attracts bees, butterflies, low maintenance, useful in the rain garden. So if you're looking for rain garden plants, that's a great rain garden plant. Foxglove, beer tongue. I don't know if it's just me. When I plant this plant, I always have to kind of stake it up. It likes to droop. The flowers get heavy and it kind of droops on me. So, but it is deer and drought tolerant, attracts hummingbirds, butterflies, bees, 3 to 5 feet, 3 to 4 feet, June through to July. This is Penistum digitalis. So digitalis is what they make the heart drug with. So when you're using this plant or moving it or planting it, you do want to go wear gloves. Some people have reported reactions like palpitations in the heart. So you want to be careful with it. You want to be careful with children around this or pets. Love, love this plant. I have this and I've had it probably about 8 years. People are starting to use this for landscaping instead of boxwoods and other shrubs. It's a shrub. It dies back down in the fall. So you won't have any fall foliage other than these berries. But before winter hits, it dies down completely and then comes back up the next year. Spikenard, it big leaves, branchy leaves. Sometimes it will cover my Lenten roses, so I have to trim that a little bit. But really easy to trim the branches. They're kind of soft. They get real small little white flowers. Sometimes they'll be under the leaf, so you won't even really notice them. But then they start getting these berries. So these, I think this one's picture is actually from my yard. This one I took from websites because I didn't have a big picture of it. But very nice. The birds love it. So it gets 3 to 5 feet high, or 3 to 6 feet high, and it can get probably 4 feet across in my area. Full sun to shade, so it loves either. It is in the ginseng family or wild sarsaparilla. So like I said, a lot of people are using this for a foundation plant by their house and stuff like that instead of boxwoods or other shrubs. Very nice plant and native. Okay, hummingbirds. So we have 2 of these plants on our plant sale, cardinal flower and blue lobelia. And this one I took at Shea Bush Gardens, I think in 2019. You can see a little hummingbird on here. And this one was really tall. This plant was probably, I'd say 4 to 5 feet, not just 4 feet. It was pretty tall. But here's another little picture just to kind of show you that you can plant them close. So full sun to partial shade. You can read the soil stuff. July, August, red attracts hummingbirds, butterflies, and pollinators. Rabbit and deer tolerant. So if you're looking for something that the deer and the rabbits won't eat, great plant. Great nectar plant. Great blue lobelia. Full sun, partial shade. And again, we do have a culture sheet that are in our plant sale sheet also has the heights on it there too, if you when you're ordering. July, September, blue, purplish flower. Attracts hummingbirds, butterflies, bumblebees, deer resistant, a great nectar plant. I have all 3 of these plants in my yard. Actually, I have every plant on the plant list in my yard except for the butterfly weed, but I'm buying that this year. I do have the other native, I have the common milkweed, and I have swamp milkweed too. And that's usually what I find my caterpillars on. I don't typically, well, I don't have butterfly weed, but I'll show you another milkweed that I do have. Okay, so these are lavender kind of blue flowers. So wild petunia. Right now, I'm just growing it in a pot, but I'm going to move it because it can get 1 to 2 feet high. June through August, lavender, fibrous roots, attracts butterflies. And I just found out recently it's a larval host for a buckeye butterfly. So great plant, just like your other petunias, but it's a native plant. Okay, woodland phlox. This is good for shady areas. So I have it in my back area near my lilac tree in the shade area. Blooms in May. It's blooming right now. I just was enjoying it today when I was planting a plant out. Blue, kind of purple, light blue, purplish. 9 inches to 12 inches, attracts hummingbirds, butterflies, deer resistant. Southern blue flag iris, fold to partial sun, partial shade, 2 to 3 feet tall. I have it up against my garden fence on the outside, May through July, blue purplish, deer resistant, great in marine gardens, loves wet feet, so great next to streams and ponds. Okay, so this one here, the orange one, this is the butterfly weed. That's the only plant I don't have in my garden on our plant list this year. So it's 1 to 3 feet, June to August, orange flowers, small leaves, taproot. So it does spread by a taproot, only host plant. So milkweed is the only larval host plant for the monarch butterflies. It's the only species of plant that the monarchs will lay their eggs on and that the monarch caterpillars will eat. Other butterflies will visit this, other pollinators will visit it for the nectar, but this is the only plant species that the monarch butterflies lay their eggs on. So if you want to raise them, if you want monarchs just to be in your yard and you enjoy them, plant milkweed, they'll come. The monarch lays her eggs. The female will lay their eggs. Usually they take their tail and lay them underneath the leaf. Sometimes in the spring when my milkweed's first coming up, they're putting them on the buds. So they'll put them on the unopened buds sometimes. Sometimes they'll, as the shoot's coming up, they'll start laying it on the stem. So you got to kind of scrape them off if you want to save the eggs and you want to raise them indoors. Only host plant species again for them. Monarch caterpillars eat this plant, attracts butterflies, pollinators, hummingbirds, deer resistant. They don't like a lot of animals and birds will not eat this plant because of the milky sap in it. It's toxic or doesn't taste very good. And that's the defense mechanism on the monarch butterfly, because the caterpillars don't taste good because they eat the milk sap. So the bird population has learned over the years not to eat those. So that's their defense mechanism. This is swamp milkweed. Love this plant. Great. It's great in muddy areas. It has a root ball. So if you don't want them to spread by rhizome, this is a great plant to buy. The only thing is to get the seed pods off in the fall so they don't spread. I do get some caterpillars on here, but not as much as the common, because I have the common. They prefer that over the swamp milkweed. And I have more of the common, so they lay their eggs there. So again, this is some soil conditions, 3 to 4 feet, June through August. Pink fragrant flowers. So the milkweed flowers smell so good. And that's what attracts the pollinators and the butterflies to them. Only host plant species, the monarch butterfly lays their eggs on, and this again has a root ball. Love this plant. Mine were just blooming like crazy this year. And I have this purple color and I have a paler pink one. Great fall nectar plant for the bees and the fall migration of monarchs. If we can plant more of this, and they're very pretty flowers and very vibrant purple. So if you love fall flowers, this is a perfect plant for your yard. New England asters, full sun, partial shade, clay, sand, loam, 3 to 6 feet tall. It blooms from August to October. So again, great plant for the late monarch butterflies migrating to Mexico. Purple fibrous, purple color with fibrous roots will spread by seed. So they, when they do go to seed, they're similar to dandelion. They have like a fuzz to them. So they'll fly off and start more plants. And if you don't care, hey, you got more New England aster next year. I did find out that it is deer resistant, attracts birds for the season in the fall, and it's a larval host plant for the purple crescent and the checker spot butterflies. So I didn't know that. I haven't seen any of those caterpillars on my plant. Okay, Northern Blazing Star. This is a butterfly magnet. When it blooms in the July, September timeframe, they're all over it, especially the little skippers. And I have this one and I have the other one. I love this plant. The leaves are pretty low to the ground and then the stalks come up and they're just full of flowers. Full sun, 3 to 4 feet tall, July, September, pinkish purple with fibrous root, will spread by seed. Again, that puffy flower becomes a puffy seed head. So if you don't want the seeds to fly all over, you want to get the seeds off or the flower buds off before they start really seeding. Butterfly magnet, nectar source in the fall, hummingbirds, birds, tolerates drought, erosion, dry soil, shallow rocky soils. Was that it on the, yeah, I guess it was on, okay. These are starting my flowers. So this is the woodland sunflower. The branches are kind of scratchy. So like when you put your arm in there to start thinning it out, it will scratch you. So wear long sleeves if you're trimming this. Height, 2.5 feet to 6 feet. Summer, autumn, yellow, spreads by rhizomes, by seeds. Seeds a good source for the birds in the fall and the winter, especially the yellow finches. This is one of the ones that the finches are just balancing at the top, trying to get the seeds. This is also in the sunflower family, false sunflower. Full sun, partial shade, 3 to 6 feet, yellow, spreads by rhizomes, seeds great for the birds. I have a lot of purple and yellow flowers in my yard, as you can see. Tall tick seed. This one's really funny because they're so willowy. They blow in the wind, and the yellow finches, even though they're small, you'll see the branch kind of fall as they land on it and start eating it. So full sun, partial shade, sand, medium wet soil, 3 to 9 feet tall, July to September. Small. These are small flowers, tiny. Probably, I don't know, probably as big as a cap on a medicine bottle or something like that. They're not very big. Little brown centers. Great food source for the birds in the winter, yellowfishes especially. Wild senna. So both of these pictures are wild senna. These are the leaves. It almost looks like a sensitive plant, but it has these little flowers with these black little centers, and the bumblebees just love this. As you can see, this bumblebee is getting a lot of pollen on them. These little bean things, these are the seed pods. So once the flowers are done, you get these little seed pods. So I save the seed pods in the fall and I share them with friends and family. Full sun to partial shade. So this one is actually in my back. That used to be my shade garden. So it loves that area, 4 to 6 feet. July and August it blooms. Yellow, host plant for cloudless sulfur butterflies, bumblebee nectar pollen source. Never found a cloudless sulfur butterfly caterpillar on this plant yet. I'm hoping one of these years. Uh, purple is one of my favorite colors. Missouri ironweed, love this plant. Purple, deer resistant, attracts pollinators. Some moth species feed on ironweed. Beautiful plant. Mine does well in full sun or partial shade. I have some in full sun, well, the west facing sun most of the day. And then I have some that's kind of in the shade of my gazebo, 4 to 7 feet tall. Very pretty plant. Hoary vervain. Like I said, a lot of purple in my yard. I use it to let my butterflies go and kind of dainty flowers. And full sun, partial shade, 2 to 4 feet tall, June to September. Pollinators, seeds for the fall, seeds in the fall for the butterflies, larval host for the common buck-eyed butterfly. Milkweed, my favorite, the common milkweed. I love this plant. I love this, even though it's got a taproot, I love it because it's got huge leaves so that it can feed many caterpillars. And you can see that the monarch butterfly loves it. The tiger swallowtail, yellow tiger swallowtail also loves it. Great nectar source. I had these huge wasp on it. These black wasps are almost as big as this bud here. But here is the buds of the flower before they open. And sometimes you got to look on the buds for eggs. And then, like I said, you're going to look underneath the leaves for eggs. That's where the female will deposit the eggs. And this is a pretty, one of the last star caterpillars, last instar stage. Pretty fat guy here, about ready to get ready to spin. Pink huge flowers, June and July. Some people call it a firework type blossom because it shoots out. Fragrant flowers, when you walk by them, oh my God, they smell so good. Large leaves, only host plant again for the monarch butterflies. Rhizome root. So if you don't want it to spread, some people will plant it in planters. But go with swamp oak milkweed if you don't want it to run. Okay. And if you're not raising butterflies. World milkweed. I do have this one. And you can see that there's some little pollinator wasp on it. Very small little leaves. So I've never seen my caterpillars on this plant, probably because I have the common milkweed and the swamp milkweed. They prefer laying their eggs there. The leaves almost remind me of rosemary, very thin type leaves. So I don't know how they would survive on that. They wouldn't get enough nourishment. Maybe out in the wild or something. So sun, partial sun, rich, wet, muddy soil. So it's great near probably swamps and stuff. 1 to 3 feet. So it doesn't get very tall. The flowers are white, almost bluish, a light blue too. At least mine are. Small leaves, host plant again, root ball instead of the rhizome. So if you want some milkweed in your yard, you can get this one too. Queen Anne's lace. This was a big flower head with this beautiful female monarch here. And she looks like a stained glass window. Love this plant. It's been around for decades, centuries. Great plant. It is, if nothing else is around, this is a good larva source for the black swallowtail caterpillars. So if I've run out of parsley or dill, I put them over here on the Queen Anne's lace. I actually talk so much about caterpillars to my best friend from childhood, and she called me and said, I think I got, she sent me pictures. I think I'm pulling out these weeds and I think they're caterpillars. So she sent me pictures and I said, oh, this is Queen Anne's lace. Yes. So she saved one plant in the flower bed and she moved all the caterpillars to that. This is another great plant, Canadian anemone, full sun, partial shade. Mine were in partial shade and I wasn't getting much. Now that they're more in full sun back by where the arborvitaes are, they're spreading like a wildflower. They're very low ground cover, white. They're about ready to bloom soon, May to June, white, a hardy ground cover. And again, it's a woodland plant, so it does well in shade, but it really thrives in sun also. And it spreads by rhizomes. I love this plant. Really nice little flowers. And I love the leaf pattern too. This is another aster. It's a tall, flat top aster. Gets little yellow flowers on it. And again, it blooms late summer, early fall. Great nectar plant. Not as showy as the purple New England aster, but it is in the aster family. 2 to 7 feet tall. And Western Pearly Everlasting. Right now I have it in a pot. I'm probably going to move it because this one will get 1 to 3 feet tall. It full sun, partial shade. So I have it in the afternoon sun. It is doing well. Spring blooms spring and summer. It's a little dainty white flower with a yellow center. And it's a host for the American lady butterfly. Other white flowers and plants, mountain mint. This is very, mine is about 2 to 3 feet tall. It's in partial shade. It's in the morning sun, and then it gets kind of shaded by the gazebo as the sun goes over. June to September, white. Pollinators love it. Minty smell. So it's next to my gazebo, so I can smell a little bit of mint. I've had it in an area just outside my gazebo, and it's only spread very little. Nice plant though, well behaved, very short, got these nice little blossoms. Virgin Bowers clematis. This is the only native clematis to our area. Full sun, partial shade. The vines can get 6 to 20 feet tall, are wide and tall. I have it right now on my front privacy fence. So it's on a little patch of area. And last year was the first time it bloomed for me. They are fragrant, but not quite as fragrant as the sweet autumn clematis, which I also have, which is not a native. It's, I think it's originally from Japan or Asia or somewhere. But you can see little dainty flowers, and this is what the flower looks like when it starts to go to seed. It looks like an old man's beard. White, slightly fragrant, like I said. Toxic to mammals, so to your dog and your cats. Foliage is often used for nesting for songbirds, and pollinators love it. This is a very, very dainty geranium. So it's a native wild geranium, little tiny flowers, probably no bigger than your thumbnail. The leaves and the stems get kind of red, so it's kind of pretty. It's a low growing forest plant. So I have it in the shade of my Japanese maple in my center garden. So it gets shade most of the day where it's at. 1 to 2 feet tall, very pretty, very nice. I love it. Great ground cover. Sweet Joe Pie weed, another great pollinator plant. Not a host plant, but it is a native plant, or pollinator plant. So they like the nectar. So pink fuzzy, bloom time is summer, 4 to 5 feet tall. Very nice, full sun, partial shade. Pollinators and butterflies. Pink flowers that I have in my garden. So this is the pink maroon. It's called a swamp rose mallow. Huge, like disher saw, like a luncheon plate size flower on both of them. This one gets a little taller. It's in more sun than the maroon one. The maroon one's in the shade of my Japanese maple. This one's in my back garden. So it gets pretty much full sun. It's near the path to the gazebo. But they bloom summer and autumn, pink, maroon. The only thing is pests that like to attack, and mostly the lighter pink one because it's out in the sun, is the Japanese beetles. They like to get in there and start eating away at the flower. Like I said, they can get 3 to 7 feet tall. This one is a little taller. This one's probably about 5 feet. This one's probably about 2.5 to 3 feet wide and tall. And they die back down to just dead stems in the fall. So you won't have a bush still in the fall and winter, but they do come back, sprout through the ground. Nice plant, like it. Here are 2 other blazing stars, blazing stars that I have in my garden. One is a marsh blazing star, which full sun. Both of these take full sun. They like chalky clay sown. The marsh blazing star can get 3 to 6 feet. The rough blazing star 2 to 3 feet. The bloom time of the marsh blazing star is summer to autumn. Purple, butterfly magnet, nectar source in the fall. Hummingbirds like it. This one's similar to that other one that's on our plant list, fuzzy flowers. And you can see all the little skipper butterflies and the bees. And I think there was a grasshopper right here. Full sun, dry soil, shallow rocky soil, drought tolerant, August to October, butterfly magnet, nectar source in the fall, hummingbirds. These are some pink and red flowers I have. You can see milkweed over here in the front. This is bee balm, scarlet bee balm, Monardia. Full sun, partial shade, well-drained soil, 4 to 7 feet, summer to autumn. Hummingbirds love it. Pollinators love it. Purple coneflower, Enchinea. This is, they use it for colds and stuff like that. So it's a herbal plant. Full sun, shady. Mine does well in the shade too. Clay, well-drained, neutral, 2 to 4 feet. Summer, autumn, purple, pink. Attracts pollinators, butterflies, hummingbirds. Seed is a good source. You'll see the finches on here eating the seed heads in the fall. Other natives and non-natives. So this is Anise hyssop. It's in the mint family. And you get tall little bluish purple flowers. It does spread by seed. So, and the finches like that seed also. And you can see butterflies like to land on it. Pollinators, especially bumblebees, butterflies, and again, in the mint family, 1 to 3 feet tall. So it's pretty short. It will grow in sun and partial shade. I had it underneath my Japanese maple. It thrived there too. Kiss me over the garden fence. So this is a non-native, full sun, annual. So I'm not a native slob. So I do have some ornamental stuff in there. The cardinals love the seeds from this. Very pretty, stocky, stalk, almost like a bamboo stalk. And it can get anywhere from 4 feet. I've had it 10 feet almost to the roof of my side porch. Summer, fall, deep pink. Cardinals love the seed in the fall. Annual, not native. Okay. If you leave the seeds on for the cardinals, you'll have hundreds of these in the spring that you'll have to pull.
but beautiful flowers. Non-native plants, rose, musk mallow, full sun, will adapt to partial shade, 2 to 3 feet tall. I love this plant. It's like almost like a mini hibiscus. It's got the same kind of flowers as hibiscus. Lacy leaves, pollinators, non-native. Spotted bellflower, it's in the Campanula family. Full sun, partial shade. I have it in the shade of my Japanese maple, and it's kind of viney. So I have like a web, like a netting that I put the flowers over. And if you deadhead the flowers, you get more blossoms. 6 to 12 inches tall, June and August, white, pink with purple dots on the inside. So it's kind of whitish pink on the outside, and you can see the purplish dots in there. Pollinators love it. The bees like to put their little butts in there. Non-native.
And this is my front flower bed. I had to dig out this rhododendron last fall. I have 2 rhododendrons over here. These have been in here since we moved in the house, since I got rid of, when I moved in the house, we had these tall, ugly bushes in the front, and you couldn't even walk down this little sidewalk. And the first spring, my husband was out of town on business, and I went to Home Depot and rented a chainsaw, and I chopped these bushes down, and then my neighbors helped me with chains and pulled out the root ball. But I was determined. My friend had given me this slate and a Japanese little ornamental Japanese maple. So that was one of my first garden makeovers when I first bought the house, other than getting rid of the sand play yard. But I ended up putting a red azalea in last week, planted it here because it was empty here without something. But this was spring of last year when my youngest daughter graduated from Wayne State. So you can see I love these. They're in the onion family, so there's alien. These are the big ones. Tulips are in here. Forget-me-nots are in here. Hostas, and then the rhododendrons. And now again, where this plant was, I now have a red azalea in here. And then I have a bunch of tulips. I have some woodland poppy in here in the corner by the mailbox. And this is grape hyacinth here. And then this is one of my Lenten roses I took a couple years ago. I took it underneath the flower so I could see the blue sky in the front. So that's really pretty. I like those. Partial shade, 18 to 24 inches, pink, deer resistant, non-native. And these are the 12 milkweeds, native milkweeds. So the butterfly weed is the one on the plant list. Swamp milkweed is also on our plant list this year. This is my favorite, the common milkweed. I don't have this one, and I don't have these 3 in the middle here. I do have the pokeweed. I don't have the spider or the prairie milkweed, but I have these other ones here, except for this green one. So any of the milkweeds are native, and they will attract the monarch butterflies for the larvae host. They will also attract other pollinators, bees, wasps, other types of butterflies will nectar on the flowers. Okay, these are the plants that you want to plant to save the bees. So herbs like lavender, catmint, sage, cilantro, thyme, fennel, and borage. Perennials, crocuses, buttercup, aster, hollyhocks, anemone, snowdrops are the first flowers to bloom in the spring through the snow. Geraniums, annuals, candela, sweet alyssum, poppy, sunflower, zinnia, clemone, and heliotrope. And you can see the bees are all honey. They're ready to make pollen. Okay, so this is the Yardeners plant list. And you can email us at SCS Yardeners at gmail.com, and I'll have that on the last slide if I got it wrong. But these are pre-order plants. Our native plant sale is Saturday, June 12th
from 9 a.m. to 11 at the Selinsky Greenhouse Museum. It's right behind the St. Clair Shores Library on Jefferson and 11 Mile. Will need to wear masks when you pick them up, and usually we have some extra plants. They're $2 for each plant. They're 2-inch plant pots. So these are all the plants that we went through today at the very beginning of the flower lists. And then the heights, the scientific names. I'm still getting used to trying to say a lot of these, so that's why I didn't talk the Greek names for them. Sun, whether it's full, partial, and you'll see a scale here that kind of tells you F stands for full sun, S is shade, P is for partial sun and partial shade. N next to the plant name means a nectar source. B means birds, seed, or fruit. IH is butterfly larval host, and HM is hummingbirds. And then here you would put a quantity. So if you get 5 plants, it's $10. Okay. Or if you want 10 plants, it's $20. So you email us, we'll send you the form, or you can go on the St. Clair Shores government website and type in the Yardeners, and you want to make sure you search for the 2021 plant sale form if you go that route. Otherwise, just email us and we'll send you out the plant list. And you don't have a lot of time. The plant order is due May 20th. And please note, all items will be limited to 64 plants, 2 flats per person. The plants are ordered in December based on the previous year's orders. Nursery can be contacted at wildtypeplants.com. They're up in Mason, Michigan. We've been using them for many years. And this is our schedule for the rest of the year. We do send this out in January, but these are the things that are left on our schedule for this year. So the plant sale is the June thing. August 7th, 9 to 3 is our garden tour, and fingers crossed we'll be able to actually have a garden tour this year. Last year we did a virtual video to get you kind of interested in the gardens that we're going to show this year. They were planned to show you last year. Saturday, September 18th is our Yardeners Fall Plant Exchange, where people bring up their plants and give them away. And then we have one talk left in October 11th at 7 p.m. and pruning and learn it before you get snippy. Funny title. And this is some information regarding the Yardeners. And we're also on the St. Clair Shores calendar, our meetings, our monthly meetings. We meet, just the group usually meets every month on second Mondays. And then there's usually 3 or 4 times that we have speakers in the year.
And you can find us on Facebook. Oh, here's the Yardeners email. So SCS Yardeners@gmail.com. So if you email us at that and ask us to send the plant list and the event list and the culture guide, we'll do that. And then this is the culture guide. Let me open that up. Oops. Yep. So this is the culture guide that you would also get. That tells you a little bit about each of those plants that we have on our list, what type of soil, vertical stocks, that kind of stuff. Okay. And let me go back here and back here. Okay. And these are the resources that I have. So MSU Master Gardener and other resources. So you can go on their website and look for Going Native Can Be Smart Choice in Michigan Landscapes. They also tell you what's good along water areas. And then the Watershed Council org, rain gardens. And then this is the information regarding our native plant sale. So that's our next event. So that's June 12th. Please wear masks, social distance, And then the other one is September 18th, the plant exchange. And then I forgot the garden tour, but you'll see it on the list. The garden tour is always the first Saturday in August. And hopefully, like I said, fingers crossed, we'll be all able to meet for the garden tour. And we give them a map. It's $5 for the tour. And we usually have 7 to 8 houses on the tour. Wild Types Native Plant Nursery, that's where we get our native plants from. Macomb County Master Gardener, I just found out, are having their native sale plant this year, September 11th at the Octagon House in Washington, Michigan, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. pre-order only and scheduled pickup times. Barson Greenhouse. This is where I've gotten a couple of my plants for butterflies. And the woman, Brenda, that runs the actual the butterfly house there, she's the person that got me interested in raising monarch butterflies. And she has written quite a few books, and I've gone and listened to her talks. Great resource. She does all kinds of butterflies, raises them, moss, and things like that. This is in Westland, so I grew up on that side of town and moved to the east side over the last 30 years. But I grew up in Dearborn Heights. Eckerd's Greenhouse, that's the one I couldn't think of the name of. That's where I got the Downton Abbey rose called Violet's Rose. And it's named after Maggie Smith's character in Downton Abbey, if you're a Downton Abbey fan. But Eckerd's Greenhouse is a cool place too to get native plants and roses, and they also have a lot of succulent plants and things like that. And Ray Wiggins, I bought a couple plants from them. I bought the yellow bird magnolia. I didn't have a picture of that because we were talking native plants, but great plant source too. And then this is my contact information. So my personal email, my garden email is mastergardenelsmith@gmail.com. I have an Instagram account, same Master Gardener Lori S. And then I have a Twitter account too. And then my memberships are the St. Clair Shores Yardeners, the MSU Master Gardener Trainee, Macomb County Master Gardener Association, and Detroit Garden Center Association. And then I am a certified monarch way station and a certified wildlife habitat. And you can go to their websites to find out what you need to be certified. A lot of it's you need, the types of plants that the wildlife like, you need water sources and things like that. Okay. Hopefully you enjoyed this talk in person, and I probably went into more detail just now. So have a good day and hopefully see you soon. And I will be doing a butterfly talk for monarchs at Roseville Library on July 1st. Time is limited, or space is limited in case we have a rain day, we have to go inside. So go to Roseville Library and there'll be a link for the butterfly talk. And then I'm doing a native plant and how to save seeds in the fall for Warren Civic Library, August the 2nd. And go on their website to find out when that talk will be available. Thank you and have a good evening.